I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. Welcome to Sewing Anastasia, and today I'm going to show you how to alter a neckline on a dress that you already have in your closet, because if it's like this dress and you put it on and you're like, what is going on with this neckline? I thrifted this dress and then I tried it on and I was like, everything is wrong with it. So I am going to make this into a flattering neckline on this dress, and it is so easy that anybody's going to be able to do this, even if you're not a professional sewer or a hobbyist sewer. This is going to be so easy. You're going to be so amazed at how easy this was to do and how different it's going to look. So stay tuned till the end to check out all the details on how we do this. You're gonna need a few supplies to alter the neckline on your dress. You're gonna need some chalk, or you could use pins instead, and you're going to need some bias tape or some seam binding. Today I'm going to be using seam binding. Seam binding is great because it's really lightweight and it's finished on both ends. It's basically considered a narrow trim. So I tried this dress on and it is way too high, and the neckline is just so closed in on me, and I wanna open it up. So I'm going to end up doing a big scoop on it. So I'm gonna take my chalk and I'm going to draw my scoop shape on the whole front of it, and then I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna do the back of it as well. I'm gonna be doing this on the dress form, but you could also do this on yourself in a mirror. So I'm gonna find out where the lowest point is that I want it for my bust, which is right about here. And now I'm gonna take this and scoop this out all the way up into the shoulders here. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, just so I can have a visual for it. We are gonna measure this to make sure it's the same on both sides, but I always like to draw a full shape for the neckline on the front so I can visually see what it's going to look like. Okay, this is already looking better. And now what you can do as well is you can snip some of this away. Just don't go all the way to your chalk line, because we need to leave a little bit of room for air to make sure it's the same on both sides, and some seam allowance. So I have my chalk line drawn, and next I'm going to cut into it just so I can get a good feel for how open I want it to be. So like I said, make sure you're leaving room for air, so that way we can make sure the right and the left are the same size. So that way we're gonna lay them on top of each other later. So right now I just wanna get a feel for the openness of this neckline. So I am going to cut into it, and I'm gonna cut all the way around, but I'm gonna leave a 1/2 inch seam allowance up from my chalk line here. I'm just going to keep cutting around to the other side so I can get a good vibe for this neckline. I'm gonna go up into the shoulder, and then I'm just gonna toss that to the back. And I didn't cut the shoulder on this side, so I'm gonna come over here and give this shoulder a cut. Can you see it? We are already looking better. I can already see myself in this dress more. We opened up the chest. We can wear a cute necklace now, and it's looking great. But, okay, we cut into all of these layers. We have a self fabric. It's coming undone at center front. We have an interfacing layer and a lining layer. So what are you going to do with all these raw layers now that we have cut this apart? Well, keep following along, and I'm gonna show you how to make this dress look professional with this new neckline. Now that I have the rough cut for the neckline all done, what I wanna do is take my rulers and smooth out the lines. So I'm going to line up my French curve with my chalk line at center front, and then over here at the shoulder. You can see that my chalk line gets real wobbly in here. I'm not gonna worry about that, because we are gonna redraw the neckline with the French curve here. There we go. Now we have a nice smooth line for the neck. When upcycling and altering things, this is the easiest way to make sure it ends up symmetrical on both sides. Make one side exactly how you want it, cut it all off, make sure your seam allowances and everything are in it, and then fold it in half together, and then use that as a pattern or a template to go ahead and cut off and alter the other side of the garment. If you love what you're seeing so far, make sure you subscribe to Sewing Anastasia and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. Now let's cut off that neckline. So I'm gonna cut right where my new chalk line is, all the way around the neckline. Let's flip it over to the back here so you can see. So you'll notice I am cutting through all the layers that I have here, the lining and the interfacing layers. So we're gonna have all these little scrap pieces that I cut off. And there we go, we got that neckline cut on half. And now we're gonna fold it in half. So I have this side all cut, and now I need to fold it on top of the other side so that way I can use it as a template to cut the other side of my neckline. So I want to fold it perfectly down center front. And thankfully, this dress has a seam down center front, so it makes it a little easier. And you wanna line up the other seams that you have on the dress. So I'm gonna line up the shoulder seam, I'm gonna line up that princess line, and now you can see how much I need to cut off the other side here. So I'm gonna use this as a template to go ahead and cut it. I'm gonna hold it in place. You could also pin it. We can pin it in place to make sure it doesn't move on us. And now I'm going to cut right up to the shoulder. And then I'm gonna stop and reline up. Because this is already sewn together, working in a 3D shape can be kind of difficult. So now what I'm going to do is just keep lining up the edge of the shoulder here. I'm going to put a few pins in it to make sure it stays lined up. And just work my way all the way around the back neckline, pinning it together. Now you can see how much I have to take off the back neckline. So I'm gonna start at center back here, and I'm just gonna follow the neckline that's already there from the other side, working my way up the shoulder. There we go. So now we have that piece removed. Oh, looks like I left a piece here on the front. So we are just gonna blend this right in to where we left off. There we go. And now if we undo the pins that we have here, our neckline should be the same on the right as it is on the left because we've used one side as a template for the other side. Check it out, our neckline is looking great. It is the same on both sides. Remember, we cut half, we folded it over to the other side, use that as a template, cut off the extra, and voila! We've got a new neckline on here, and all we need to do is finish the edges. Now grab your bias binding or your seam binding, and let's finish off that neckline. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this step by step so it looks nice and professional. So if you have multiple layers in your dress, you can go ahead and make sure all your layers are lined up. Take your bias tape or your seam binding, lay it on the front of your garment. I'm gonna let about 1 inch of it hang off the end. And then let's pin it all the way around the neckline. You want your binding right up next to the edge of your cut line that you have. So make sure everything is nice and lined up. And just work your way all the way around the neckline that you've created. And your neckline could be any shape. It could be a scoop, it could be a V, it could be a sweetheart, it could be anything. And if you have seams that are starting to come apart, you're gonna have to go back and just stitch these up first before you put the binding on. So next, I'm going to stitch this up and then continue my binding. So this was real easy. I just backstitched, sewed up to the end, and backstitched again, and now my seam is nice and secure. So now we can keep pinning the neckline. Now I have the binding all pinned to the neck. Now let's move over to the sewing machine and sew this down. Now that we're at the sewing machine, let's go over exactly where we're going to stitch. We're gonna stitch 1/4 inch away from this raw edge, almost right in the middle of this ribbon. Don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and continue all the way around. Make sure you're taking your pins out before you get to them. And just keep everything nice and lined up. When you get to the end, backstitch and cut your thread. Now that we have the pink binding sewn all the way around the neck, we need to flip it to the inside where the lining is and stitch it down. So what I'm gonna do is take the pink binding here and flip all of it to the inside. And this is creating a facing. So we're using this little piece of seam binding to create a facing. So it's finishing the neckline and the inside of the garment here. So it's going to look beautiful on the outside. So you can work your way all the way around the neckline and pin this down, or you can just fold it as you sew. So I'll just be folding it as I sew, but just so you can see, it should look something like this on the inside. And then we're going to end up stitching right on the edge here. So this will produce a stitch on the outside of the garment. So if you don't want to see a stitch on the outside of the garment, you should hand sew this. Let's stitch it down and take a look at it. When you get to the end, back stitch and cut. We did it, it is finished. Our new neckline is here, and it was so easy to do, which is that little piece of seam binding. All we had to do was cut the shape of the neckline we wanted, finish it with the seam binding, and voila, we have a new neckline. So you can see how nice and finished the edge of our neckline is. We do have a little stitch right here and matching thread on the outside. And then on the inside here, we have the seam tape finishing off the edge. It looks beautiful. No more raw edges, and we have a nice professional look to our new neckline. Also, if you had to take out your zipper to alter this neckline to make it lower, you can now sew back in your zipper, and then you are ready to wear your dress. Thank you so much for watching Sewing Anastasia today. If you have any questions about altering a neckline, make sure you leave it down below and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this method, and I would love to see your projects, so make sure you tag me in them at Sewing Anastasia so that way I can repost them and share them with everyone else. I love keeping everyone creative and inspired. And if you're not already a subscriber to Sewing Anastasia, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so that way you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, I now teach sewing classes in my design studio in Chicago, Illinois, and I also teach them virtually as well. So check those out at sewinganastasia.com. Thanks for watching. Bye!